This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
When we align with our soul desires, life is flowing and fun and beautiful and easy. Thoughts sponsored from love fill our minds with ease and grace. And then our minds create healthy bodies and harmonious relationships and life circumstances. Valeria interviews Justin Speller. He is a certified EFT and energy work practitioner. Growing up in a family with two psychiatrists as parents, Justin Speller was always interested in the field of psychology. As a child, he learned about the inner workings of the mind, just listening to his parents talk over dinner. Upon graduating from high school, Justin applied and was accepted into a full merit-based scholarship program at Boston College called the Presidential Scholarship Program. He enrolled with his heart set on following his parents and sister into the field of medicine. However, it was not meant to be. In his freshman and sophomore years, Justin battled intense anxiety and depression, often feeling paralyzed and lost. During that dark time, he stumbled upon energy techniques and experienced the miraculous results possible from balancing stuck energies in a person's system. Justin was intrigued, to say the least, and his spirit felt renewed. He finished his degree and received a BA in psychology, but then decided to break course with the doctors in his family and head in a different direction. Justin studied the emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping, and became a certified practitioner. He continued learning and began mentoring with Karen Davidson, a master at EFT and trainer of trainers. She taught him so much on his journey to become a better practitioner and work with energy. Justin utilizes many different techniques in his work, and he has seen amazing results working with clients with all different types of emotional and physical issues. He is so excited to continue helping others in their journey towards health and wellness. Meet Justin at tapintothelight.com. Here's the interview with Justin Speller.
In your own words, who is Justin Speller?
So Justin Speller is perfect, and Justin Speller is a work in progress.
Yes, and it's not a paradox, right?
No, it's a divine duality, right? It's a divine dichotomy. It's not a paradox, it's both, right? I don't see them as being mutually exclusive, but I truly believe that and feel that I am perfect, and we all are perfect, right? I'm not just saying me.
Yes.
We all are perfect, and we all are works in progress, right?
Yeah, interesting. So what would you say is the part of us that's this work in progress? Would you say that's the body, mind parts of us? Or?
Yeah, I would actually say it's the soul or the spirit, the body, and the mind. I think all three parts are evolving, and I love that question because I think that that they all work together to create our experience, and every time we create our experience, we then look at it and decide, are we happy with this? Are we okay with this? Or are we looking to create something different? And I think all three come into play when we're figuring out, how do we create something different if we are not satisfied or if we're not happy with this current expression.
Right. Okay, so let me see if I understand, Justin. So you actually use those two words as one, spirit, soul. So the spirit, soul, body, mind, spirit, soul / soul. They're evolving. So what is the part of us that's perfect?
So I think that I would actually say, even though it's a little bit of a bold claim, that all of it is perfect because it all allows for us to evolve, right? I think that the soul, and I really think that, and from one level, it's like the mind, body, and spirit are all one. It's all one thing. It's all the same energy. And, in here, it's kind of like our energy is like shown through a prism, and that one color light, that white light, breaks up and differentiates into the different layers. So then all of a sudden, these three layers of mind, body, and spirit are separated out more. So there's more distance between them. So then it's easier to see and feel each one individually. But I think they all play an important role in our evolution, obviously in different ways. And sometimes I think they're at odds with each other. So, your body might be trying to create one thing, and your spirit or your soul might be trying to create something else, and your mind might be trying to create a third thing. But I think they're all important tools in ultimately just continuing to grow as people.
Yes. Okay, so that you refer to the experience of being a human, right? We need all these three aspects in order to manifest the human, this human, let's say, we call this life. That's an interesting thing, even to reflect upon, because since I was very little, I remember, asking that question, what is it? Who am I? Well, I was so young, I remember as a child. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror. I must have been 6 or 7 and saying, oh, you're back here in a female body this time.
Yeah, interesting. Wow, you have that awareness even. That's really cool.
Right. Without, you say awareness, but I didn't have any memories of a previous life or anything like that. It was just very spontaneous, just a knowledge that seemed to be always there.
Right.
So that was interesting. So that kind of informed my entire kind of foundation for spirituality since I was very young. And then now, because I'm a student, that of course evolved a lot. Now I'm a student of, I have done some Buddhism, Zen, Tibetan Buddhism. And then now it's Advaita Vedanta. It's this Hindu religion, really, but I'm not really, I don't do anything. I'm not involved with the religious part of it. Right. But according to Advaita Vedanta, we have this the three parts of us, very similar to what you're saying, but body, mind, and then the spirit, they use the word pure consciousness. Are you familiar with the Advaita Vedanta, which is a non-duality?
I am somewhat familiar with it. I haven't studied it extensively, but I do think I'm familiar with some of those principles, yes.
Yeah, so you might be able to understand this the way I do. So it made a lot of sense to me in an intuitive way. Like it's almost like that knowledge that has been there in me was reflected outwards with language. And then I was like, oh my God, that's it. I cannot believe somebody is actually talking about this. And then I found out that Advaita Vedanta has been around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So pure consciousness, they use those words instead of spirit. And the pure consciousness part of us, it's not really a part, it's actually the whole. And the body, mind, it's appearing, it's manifesting in a way, but not in a absolute real way. It's almost like in a dreamlike way. So we are able to experience the body, mind. But this I that I call I is actually the whole. This is the real, the absolute reality. And that's perfect. There's no, as you said, perfect, use the word perfect. That is always at peace and never changes. So it's always the same. And according to them, the more we get to, let's say, establish ourselves, realize the presence of what we are, not who we are, then we become a lot more stable in that sense. Nothing can take our, let's say, sense of peace per se, using for of a better word in a human way. So that sense of peace is always there. It can never be taken away. The body can be taken away. We'll be losing the body, our health. We might be losing our minds, even in the logical sense. But that part of us never changes. It's always there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense to you, but could you somehow kind of relate or kind of bring those two concepts together? The one that you understand and this one that I understand?
Sure. Yeah, I think that that the way that I see spirit or soul, it is that consciousness, and another another three words that I like to use sometimes for it is superconscious, conscious, and subconscious. Which is a little bit more of a psychological perspective.
Right.
But I see the superconscious as like that greater consciousness, which is that ultimately that place of oneness, right? Where we're all the same, we're all one. It's like that essence that infuses everything, and then we're these individuations. But ultimately it's that essence that holds everything, and it holds the mind and it holds the body. And I like how, from what I heard, it sounded like there was like in almost like an illusory component to the mind and body, right? That it's not quite as real in a way as the consciousness level, and I think that makes a lot of sense too. And at the same time, I think that, it comes into existence because it does help us be in relationship. And in relationship, then we can define ourselves, as this or that, as tall or short, as rich or poor, and as we define ourselves, we can experience ourselves in new ways. So I think the mind and body, they give us the ability to have experiences, right? Which it seems like there's this desire from that one consciousness, or there's this desire from the soul, to have that.
Yes. Yeah. That's yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. We use different words. It's just language, right, Justin?
Right.
But it's really the same idea.
Yeah.
So in that sense, then, this being only an experience, which means temporary, where it's nothing to really hold on to. And that's one thing that Vedanta they keep emphasizing. Do not hold on in anything that it's temporary. So do not attach to anything. In Buddhism, they use that word too, attachment. That's the cause of all suffering. Yeah. So that's another, it sounds like another paradox, because we are wired to connect, and we would just thrive, right, in attachments. Think about parents, attachments to their babies. I have a dog. I'm so attached to him.
Oh, I'm so attached to my cat. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do we balance? Like, what's the best way for those who want to have this understanding and wish to establish themselves even deeper in this type of reality? How do we navigate these attachments without seeing them as temporary and becoming depressed and all that?
Right. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think that attachments really help us feel safe. As we were talking about, like, we're this one consciousness, but as we enter this illusion of having this separate mind and this separate body, and then this separate perspective, we can really start to feel disconnected, even if that disconnection is just an illusion. So then we try to find ways to feel better about that. It's not a fun place to be.
Yeah.
And I think getting attached to stuff really helps us feel better. Like, oh, like this is my cat, or this is my house, or, this is my favorite shirt, right? these
Yes.
things help me feel kind of more safe and secure in, even though I am and I feel disconnected, even though it's just an illusion, but I still feel it. But if I have all this stuff, then it's like, well, it's okay that I'm separate because at least I have this amazing shirt, or at least I have this car that I love, or you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing when you think from that perspective. I never thought it this way. This is fresh to me. I love fresh ways
Yeah.
of seeing reality, of navigating this reality, called life.
Right.
So yes, because today I'm always like reflecting upon things, and then it came to me the thought about doing what I do. This longing. I kind of shy away from the word desire. So
Uh-huh.
this longing to be closer to spirit, as you call it, to pure
Yeah.
consciousness. This reality that never changes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and then trying to understand why. Perhaps because the sufferings, and then I go back to the disconnection that you speak of.
Mhm.
Maybe because I have been disconnected for so long due to trauma, abuse and all that.
Right.
Then now, and I still see the fragments of that in this reality, the fragmented reality of people hurting each other, the
Yeah.
violence and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that is playing a role in shaping the way I've become even more interested in spiritual work and so
Right.
devoted.
Yeah.
Do you feel this way sometimes, Justin?
Yeah. I certainly know that, as a kid, I actually was not that interested in, religion or spirituality. And generally speaking, I felt pretty good. I felt pretty connected with my world, with people in my life. And then, I had some pretty huge challenges going into high school and going into college, where I felt like extreme levels of disconnection, really like I'd never experienced before. And even though I was with people, I felt alone all the time. And that drove me to the spiritual realm, I think, because, I was just seeking something, like you said, I was seeking to feel whole again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm still seeking that, although
Yeah, me too.
I do feel much more whole than I ever did before, right? And as
Yes.
I said, I'm still a work in progress, right? Which is the cool thing.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I think I had a similar longing.
Yes. And when it comes to this feeling of wholeness, how to describe that? Is that a sense of peace, a sense of safety?
Yeah, it's really, to me, it's a sense of bliss where I feel totally safe. I feel totally seen. I feel totally kind of like embraced and almost hugged, connected. I feel so much peace, and love and joy, like all of that stuff mixed together, where you just kind of feel like you're home completely. And again, it's a fleeting state, I'm not there all the time, but I get there sometimes. And, and I come in and out of it. But it's something that is a work in progress for sure.
Yes. Wow, it's so interesting to hear you saying that, because what comes to mind is this idea of following our hearts, doing what we are called to do in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So, and I read your bio, you do mention that your family, your parents, they are psychiatrists.
Yeah.
So you chose to follow a different path.
Absolutely.
So is that connected? Do you believe that there is a connection with life's calling and really having the courage to do that and as a purpose? Or this is something that's completely, it's an attribute for the work that you have done spiritually?
So I do see it, or I experience it as a calling, which of course has put me at odds with my family path, because my sister is a psychiatrist, and it was very much like encouraged that we should go to medical school. That was a big thing. And, but I just felt like it wasn't the right path for me, because it just didn't feel like it would make me happy. It felt like it would make me even more miserable than I already was at that moment in college,
Yes.
I just knew that wasn't the answer for me. So I think there's definitely an element of calling in my work, but also just just it. I feel I feel probably the closest to that wholeness and that peace often in my sessions, like when I work with people, I just feel so connected and so aligned. So like it's just a wonderful thing for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it listening to you. And there is I know we talk, most people understand the language, energy, something that we can feel at the level of the body. Mine, it's really it's not an abstract thing. It's so real in that sense.
Yeah.
So I feel that from you. And since you mentioned your work, so you are a certified EFT and energy work practitioner. Yeah. So talk to me about the process of working with clients. What's the, like from the very beginning to the end, if there is an ending? I know you do have the sessions here that you call it maintenance sessions.
Yeah.
So those are continuation.
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Yeah. Well, it's really a process of helping my clients figure out, why do they keep creating whatever circumstance that brought them in, right? Whatever was causing them suffering, which brought them in the door. Why do they keep creating that? And I'm not saying, and this is where, I want to be very precise, because like, for instance, if I'm working with a client who keeps attracting the same kind of partner over and over again in different relationships, I'm not saying that they're choosing that, because of course, consciously or from the mind level, that's not what they want. And they're trying to choose something else, yet it keeps showing up.
Right.
So even though they're not choosing it, I would still say that they're creating it. So then the question is, which parts of them are creating that? And I think often what I see is that the soul or the spirit part aligns with the body or the subconscious part to wake the person up, to help them release whatever that subconscious belief is. Like let's say it's the belief that I'm not enough, right? That you feel that really deeply in your subconscious, even though consciously you don't really think that or focus on it, but it's there on the subconscious level. So the soul's like, well, there's a knowing that we are like boundless, unlimited love, right?
Yes.
And it knows that we are not actually not enough. But if the soul aligns its creative powers with the subconscious, then we can create the same relationship over and over until the conscious mind is like, wait a second, like, what is going on here? Why does this keep showing up? What I don't want keeps coming on my doorstep over and over again. And it pushes you into that introspection where you're trying to figure out, like, what is going on within that keeps showing up on the outside. So when I'm working with a client, we're looking at, what levels of their consciousness, is it subconscious, is it conscious, or is it the superconscious level? What levels are creating their current circumstances that they don't want? And how can we then figure out how to release or shift or heal whatever needs to be resolved inside, so they can move into that alignment. So it's like, okay, consciously, I want to create a loving relationship, and now I can release what was holding me back subconsciously, so then I can align on all three levels to create, that beautiful partnership.
Wow. Yes, that's fascinating. And also, that makes a lot of sense to me, because it has been my own experience as well.
Yeah.
Of seeing this reality being played in front of me, and not understanding where it came from, why, and then realizing the pattern. Wait a minute, this is repeating itself. But then, Justin, it feels to me like if this is the purpose of the subconscious or the superconscious and the conscious, with this alignment with the soul, to show the conscious mind something, that makes sense that would end right there, that the spell, once you become conscious of the pattern, and then everything should stop, but it doesn't.
It's so true.
So,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
That puzzles me.
Yeah.
Because if that's the purpose, why it's not?
Yeah,
not ending that.
it's such a great question, and it's something that I've thought a lot about. And I can only speak from my experience,
Yeah.
with myself and with clients. But what I see is that sometimes just the having the light of awareness about a subconscious pattern that's playing out isn't enough to truly heal it, release it, and change it. Sometimes I think it is. Sometimes I think people have that aha moment and they
Right.
have this
Yeah.
huge inner transformation, and then whatever that subconscious limiting belief was just dissolves. I think that's probably more unusual. A lot of the times it just, you become aware of it, but it just keeps persisting and persisting. And that's where the energy work piece of my work
Mm,
comes in,
right.
which is really looking at where in their energy systems is this information stored, right? Whatever the limiting belief is. And then how can we bring energy there to loosen that dense energy that's just holding on for dear life, which I think is part of the ego, right? Because the
Oh,
ego,
yeah. Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like the ego clings to who we think we are, even
Yes.
if it's
Yes.
it's not serving us,
Yes.
right? Even
Yes.
if it's self-sabotaging,
Yeah.
it still clings to some identity,
Yeah.
and tries to prove that we're right about who we think we are. So there's a
Mm,
disengaging and a dissolving process that needs to happen in order to truly release it, so it doesn't keep showing up again. And that again is where the energy work piece comes in for me.
wow. Yes, and thank you for that, for being one of the guides, to take us there, because it's so true. It's not something that happens overnight or we can do on our own. A lot of times, has been
Yeah,
my experience.
yeah,
I,
mine too.
I guess for me has been kind of finding peace within that realm as well. So I'm not fighting it.
Yeah,
So has helped a lot, not fighting that reality that keeps showing up. And I guess it has to do also with, the collective, let's say, manifestation of energies that we see now, the wars that,
right,
that have happened.
right,
We have had wars for thousands of years now, and they never really ended.
right.
So do you also work at that level with the collective consciousness or the subconscious of the collective mind to
Yeah,
change reality as a whole?
yeah. I do a certain amount of work at that level, and that occurs at different ways. But I think ultimately it's like, and Peter Crone says it really well when he talks about how, as long as we're at war with ourselves
Mm,
internally,
yeah.
it's gonna create war between peoples, between
Mm,
nations, right?
yes.
Because we're still
Yes.
at war, because so many people are still at war inside.
Yes.
And we all contribute in different ways to that kind of warring energy
Right.
based on how much we're still at war. And I loved what you said about
Mm,
how you've gotten better at kind of just accepting and not fighting these things
yes.
that show up that you might not necessarily want. And in a
Right.
way, like, to me, that's you making peace with your own stuff and stopping the war inside, which I think
Mm, mm,
adds, that shift to the collective energy, which helps all of us do the same thing.
right. Yeah, it definitely feels that way at a personal level.
Yeah,
And I know I talked to so many people like yourself, and I always thank them to be doing the work they are doing, because I know we are all connected. Obviously, actually, worse than connected, we are one, right? That's one. There's one substance here for
right.
everything. It's
Yes.
not that we are connected, even
Yeah.
that we were never disconnected in the first place.
Yes.
But at the personal level, it feels that way. But then it feels like that paradox again when we look. I don't watch TV, but sometimes my husband put the TV on and I can
Sure.
see what's happening.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of, it's not a fight, but there is this resistance not to be in touch with that reality. So I'm wondering if that's also a way of fighting it. So, because I don't want to fight anything,
Yeah.
but if I don't, something in me doesn't feel, let's say, aligned with that violence and all that. So I choose not to be in contact with it.
Yeah.
Do you recommend that as a practice to stay away from it, or?
Well, I think it
Yeah.
depends where you are. I think that, of course, like an incredibly evolved place to get to. I would not say that I'm here yet,
Right,
but at a
right,
very
right,
evolved place, you can look at all
right.
that and kind of bless it, right? Rather
Wow.
than push against
Mm,
it. But I think it
mm,
depends where you are. So what I
right.
recommend is if it's something that brings you a lot of distress, then stay away from it to the extent where it's not putting you into that negative state of beingness,
Mm, yeah,
and if you can, and if it's kind of like, okay, like I can occasionally see this or see that, and it doesn't kind of throw me off, in terms of how I'm feeling, then
yeah.
do that, but if
Mm,
whatever level you can kind of do where you're just like, okay, like it's all right, like I can bless this, or I can be okay with this, or I can understand that there's a lot going on here, and even though I wouldn't prefer it, I don't have to suffer about the suffering, so it's
mm,
really, it's like a
yeah.
very individualized thing. And hey, sometimes, some days, you might be able to read certain stories or see certain headlines and be fine, and other days it might totally throw you for a loop. So
Yes.
it's an ongoing moment to moment challenge, right?
That is true, Justin. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, beautiful suggestion. Yes, I would love. I'm curious now about this concept of blessing. What is? How do you do that? What are the thoughts behind it? Or the
Yeah.
words?
Yeah. It, to me, blessing is totally acknowledging the reality of something, totally honoring it, totally respecting it, and realizing that even if you don't consciously know what higher purpose it's serving, but
Mm,
believing and trusting that it is serving a
mm,
higher purpose. So
mm.
it's kind of like seeing the
Wow.
perfection, right?
Yes. Yeah. Ah, that's beautiful. Oh, that is beautiful. And I often reflect about that too in my day to day life, my family, I see a lot of that disconnection.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. Okay, this is happening because divine intelligence is doing it, because everything is God to me. There's nothing
Yes.
that's not God.
Yeah.
So well, who am I to judge God as
Right.
as a piece of God myself? So that is fascinating. I think that goes back to what we talked off record about, seeing people who, I was just wondering today, kind of reflecting on this, what makes people like me, you, and so many that I meet
Yeah.
to feel so aligned and inclined, to do spiritual work, and
Yeah.
because everything is God
Yeah.
ultimately. That's the, I mean, to me, that's the truth with capital T.
Yeah.
So what happens with people who are doing all these, horrible things, behaving in a way that's very destructive? And then I was wondering if they knew about that, if they were conscious about it, then if they were suffering about it. And then you explained beautifully, which I would love to hear it again so the audience can hear too.
Sure.
Yeah, talk to me for a moment about that,
Yeah.
the ego and
Yeah.
disconnection.
Absolutely. So I think that people that hurt others, whether it's through intentional acts or just kind of like acts where they're just not taking other people's into account, but not necessarily realizing it, that often it's, what's happening is they, on some level, feel at a deep level less than, or they feel disconnected, or they feel insecure. So then they have an ego that is trying to numb that pain of feeling disconnected, of feeling less than. And one of the ways to do that is to feel really powerful. And, sadly, depending on your perspective, when sometimes for some people, when they put themselves in positions of power, or they're dominating others, or they're hurting others, like they feel, or they're, bullying others, right? I think there's a feeling of power, insecurity, and some of them come from the perspective of like, well, either you are the bully or you get bullied. Like it's one or the other. So I might as well be the bully, right? And then at least I can feel secure, and I can feel like I'm not going to get taken advantage of, and I'm not going to get hurt. But I think it varies for each person, but I think ultimately they're trying to compensate for the deeper feelings of lack or not enoughness or disconnectedness.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's it. It's very clear to me that this is what it's happening.
Yeah.
And so in a way, Justin, even the attempt to try to change that seems like it's a judgment, right? It's going against this flow of divine manifestation, which allows free, right? It's freedom. So allows everything to happen, even the sense of separation.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thought, right? Is like, can we accept and even bless something and at the same time seek to change it? Right.
Right.
And I personally, I don't think that those are mutually exclusive. I think that just as like a random example, and it also an example of how sometimes it's really hard to bless the circumstances you're in. I was driving home from Massachusetts to Connecticut a little while ago at like late at night, and I got a flat tire. And sitting there wondering what I was going to do, it was challenging to bless that situation, right? But I think that it's possible to bless it, but also to realize, okay, like, I'm not just going to sit here with my flat tire and do nothing. Like, I'm going to call AAA, or I'm going to figure out what to do to get this tire changed so my car can kind of be moving again. So I think there's a way to come at when you're seeing these things in the world, to come at it from a place of not judging it and not condemning it, yet also seeking to change what you're seeing, in a loving, in a way of bringing awareness, of bringing love, of bringing kindness and compassion, right? And I'm not saying it's easy, but I do think that when you come from that energy, you're not resisting it.
Yes.
Yes,
that also resonates true to me. I heard, I think it was, it was a Swami said that. Somebody said that. When I close my eyes, I am at peace. When I open my eyes, how can I help? That's always
that's beautiful. Yeah.
And so that's what I just came to me as a message when you speaking about your own experience, challenging experience. And of course, we go through them all the time. And if not now, we will at some point. Right?
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love the way you, I never heard it that way. Of course, the word bless, yes, but the way you connected this idea of blessing something when we find ourselves in the situations that it's very challenging to agree with, right? To be in alignment with. To bless it, right? That's a beautiful way of doing it. So I'll take that with me today. It seems like I've been doing this already, but not and I didn't use these words because I'm always trying to find ways to kind of bring. It's basically a reflection. It's almost like trying to reflect the knowledge that I have found, that I know to be true, which everything is God. But how to reflect that truth, in this relative reality. And that's the challenge, I guess.
It absolutely is. But you're doing such an amazing job with the work that you're doing, and these conversations I know touch so many people, and it's such a wonderful expression. And but I definitely acknowledge that it can be really challenging to figure out how to kind of bring that knowingness of the beauty and the oneness of kind of like the one consciousness reality to this world of duality that we live in, and the craziness and the chaos and the pain and the people hurting people and all that unwanted stuff.
Right. And the great news is that we can't do that. It's possible because I mean, you have done, I'm doing this work myself, the spiritual work of finding myself more and more at peace and not fighting try not to fight anything. So that it has helped me at so many levels. with so many things. But of course, there are so many other things that
Right.
come along, and the wars happening now. Every time I hear about it, and it's not even. I know you mentioned trust. I used to reflect about trust. Now it's beyond trust. I really like the concept of freedom. It's because this is consciousness. God is free to be. So, and in that sense, also the part of not knowing that we are God or everything is God, it's also possible. It's a possibility.
Right.
That's amazing, isn't it, Justin?
It is.
That freedom is so beautiful. That's real love, isn't it?
Yeah.
Letting everything be.
Oh, it's so beautiful, and it's moving to me. And just the idea of kind of having complete free will to truly do whatever you choose without any sort of judgment or condemnation, right? That love is just so strong that even if it means hurting others or hurting, entire nations, like we're allowed to kind of live these different things out and ultimately reflect on, is this who we are? Is this who we choose to be, both individually and collectively, and kind of have that space to almost, with, of course, guidance, in messengers and helpful people like you, but really this space to figure things out for ourselves and ultimately find that path back to that realization of that oneness.
Yes. It is truly beautiful. And the outline that you sent to me, you actually asked that question. You say, what can we do to be in love instead of fear? Yeah. So you mentioned the ego and how it's very much driven by fear,
right? And
because it feels disconnected,
right?
And then you said the answer is expansion, which to me, that word really resonates as energetically as freedom. Like, it's freedom, the answer.
Yeah.
So, and you talked about self-love too. That is more personal. So I always, because I see everything as universal, it's not really. That was the very beginning of this process, this evolving kind of path, is that first was acceptance of everything that had happened, and then forgiveness, and then self-love.
Right.
So I went through all the steps, and then now it's more not. There's nothing personal. I don't see anything as personal anymore. It's everything is universal. Everything is God.
Yeah.
So that creates that sense of expansion that you speak of, I believe.
Yeah, totally. And I love that, because I think so many people have the experience of feeling like other people are hurting them, right? Yes. And when someone says something or does something and it hurts, there's like a constriction. There's a pulling back, there's a withdrawing, right? And and I think it goes back to what you just said, which is they take it personally. They see it as something that's about them and not about the person who's doing it. But it's so beautiful as you grow in your awareness and as you expand your sense of self, right? It's almost like you don't feel as vulnerable. And you don't have to constrict, and you don't have to kind of like suck back into this little pocket of who you are when something like that happens, and you're able to just kind of let it roll off or not be affected by it or not be hurt by it in the same way.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's it. Easier said than done for trauma survivors, right? I am one of them.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to do this spiritual work in the very beginning. Yeah. Like it was, it was very clear to me at that spiritual, intellectual level that, everything's universal now.
Right.
But then I couldn't really stop the body from feeling the restriction,
right.
When I came across people who the body was reminded of the abuser. Yeah. So that's interesting to see that dance, right, Justin, of the body, mind, and how much they hold personally. They really hold on to everything.
They do. They certainly.
And then we need to be able to recognize, especially people like myself, trauma survivors, we need to recognize, okay, this is happening again. The body's becoming tightened up about this, but I know. And then now, in a way, I'm able to it's almost like not transferring, but it's almost like um, uh, it's a sense of it's how can I explain this? Something flows from that place of that like spiritual realization, and then it feels like it's much easier to navigate the realities of body mind, although they're still holding on to some trauma.
Right.
It's not, and I wonder if that is really something that other people have experienced. I have talked to so many people here they said they had as well, but I don't know if that's a clinical thing, which, fortunately we have not. That'll be amazing to do some experiments in that science and spirituality, right? To see how much they can influence one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that that we can identify so strongly with an experience, especially a really painful one, just because it's so intense on the senses, and it just like is this massive thing that happens, and then it gets worked into our identity on a certain level. But with that spiritual energy that comes in, right, that awareness, that knowingness that we're bigger than just these bodies, than just these minds. It's like we're able to kind of expand out and begin to recontextualize the experience. So it's not as much about who we are anymore. It's something that happened to us, right? And I think the change in the relationship to it gives so much freedom. And of course, it's a process, right? And your body will always kind of honestly tell you the truth about, where you are along the healing process, because, the feelings don't lie when you come into these different situations. But I definitely think, you can make that progress, like you said, and really changing your relationship to yourself and to those past experiences is just so magical, and how it can transform how you experience things in the future.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for giving clear language to that experience. Yes, you did just did that, Justin. Yes. So it is that sense of expansion and there's a feeling of compassion too, because I know there's nothing separate here, but there's an interesting play when it comes to that awareness, spiritual awareness, that it's almost like a witness, and it's able to see the body, the dynamics of the mind, the content of the mind. So it's always watching everything, and I'm able to know now and stop the reaction. So, and I have never done therapy or anything like that. So, and that's why I talked about the experiment. I wonder how much of spiritual knowledge and realization can really, truly heal trauma survivors and people who have been, through tough situations.
Right. Well, a piece of good news is that I know that a pretty famous energy healer, Charlie Goldsmith, is working very hard on getting the first ever scientific study of energy healing done. And as to my knowledge, there's never been one done, even though I think, the field of energy and psychology are really starting to cross over a lot.
True.
But hopefully, that will open a whole new door to lots more research on spirituality and energy and healing, and it's an exciting time.
Yes, that's wonderful to know. And with that in mind, we're almost at the end. I have to ask you this question: How much have you not influenced, but what do your parents and your sister? What do they think about your work? Do you often talk about energy work with them?
Yeah, I talk about it with my parents a lot. They are really on board now and understanding it and super supportive. They've been so great with it. I haven't talked to my sister about it that much yet, but I definitely think that it's really cool to see them, coming from their place of just being trained in medicine, and kind of, unfortunately, in medical school, you get this training that to kind of just ignore and dismiss everything that's alternative or holistic, and nutritional even. And it's amazing to me that they kind of got that programming, and now they're in a place where they're super open to all of this work, and they go to like energy work practitioners themselves, and have gotten a lot of value. So it's been a lot of fun kind of bringing it into my family, so to speak.
Yes. You see, this is that's a beautiful work too that you're doing at that level, right? This with your attachments. So yeah, that's what happens. What you said before, beautifully. Once we change, we become, we realize this spiritual truth. Then it tends to expand. That's interesting. It tends to reflect back on other people. It's incredible how that's so real. So we're almost at the end. I want to thank you again for your beautiful presence in this reality. Everything that you're doing, the way you're doing, is just so genuine, open. I love the energy that I have been receiving from you. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Really, really beautiful. Actually, before we met, I felt it too.
Thank you so much for having me on. And I would say the exact same thing. Thank you for shining your light, and having the courage to have these conversations and discuss these topics. I think it's just so needed right now. And it's so wonderful that you're stepping into and embracing like all these ways that you can help people by shining awareness on all these things. And I think there's this, rising awareness, there's this rising consciousness right now on the planet with so many people, and so many people are kind of thirsting for conversations like this and for this knowledge of how to figure out their own lives and how to make things better in their own lives. So it's so wonderful, and what you're doing and what people like you are doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for everything, Justin. Not just by recognizing something like this. What I'm doing basically is a reflection of you too. I always see that. I have a hard time when people say, "Oh, thank you for what you're doing." I saying you're welcome. I never say welcome. I always see it as a reflection of them as well. Like, oh, wait a minute, we are really in alignment. We are kind of, and you're right. It is something's happening now, which is really wonderful from that perspective of imperfection. Yeah. So I want to mention your offerings. So I went on your website and I see that you offer a divine energy session. It's a 60-minute one. Yep. And you have group divine energy section 2, divine energy session. 30, 60 minutes, right? Yep. You have different lengths.
I do, yeah.
And then the 60-minute weekly divine maintenance session. You have the 60-minute financial need divine energy session. And the 30-minute free phone consultation. So this is good to know as well. If somebody wants to try it.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything, Justin?
No, you got all of them. Yep. I offer individual sessions, group sessions, individual sessions. As you said, I do either an hour or half an hour. And also for people just looking to learn more about my work, I offer kind of a free half-hour chat over the phone to give any information that they're looking for. But yeah.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much again. So before we say goodbye, I want to mention the website is tapintothe.light.com. So I will have that clickable, so it's easy for people to find on the podcast notes. And before we say goodbye for today, again, I'll ask you a question. I don't have to, but I will. I want to. This question I usually ask everyone. What 3 experiences you wish everyone to have before they lose the body, before they die?
So the experience of bliss is the first one I would say. The experience of overcoming some huge challenge, even if it's something that's taken years of work and effort, and there were times where you didn't know if it could happen, where you were in incredible doubt, where you lost hope, you lost faith, but then finding a way to overcome that and seeing a change in your experience. And also just being in a wonderful, loving relationship, whatever that looks like for you, but just being able to experience like truly seeing another and being seen by another, in any form, but just feeling that connection and that intimacy and just being able to embrace and feel embraced, I think is also an absolutely beautiful experience. And it is my hope that everyone gets to experience those 3 things, at least at some point.
Yes. What a beautiful vision for all of us, right? Thank you so much again, Justin, for being you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk again. We'll be in touch again. You take good care of yourself for now.
Okay, you too. Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful talking.
You. Yeah, I feel the same way. Bye for now, Justin.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Justin Speller and his work, please visit tapintothelight.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.